So we are live on Facebook. We can start now.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the session. As you all know, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We have so many questions surrounding breast cancer, so it would be great to hear it from the expert herself. I would like to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Anaga Zope. She's got many years of experience. She's a senior consultant, a breast oncoplastic surgeon at Apollo CBC Cancer Center, Ahmedabad. I would just hand it over to Dr. Zope now.
Good afternoon. Very valid discussion that we have planned, and I am very grateful to Supratek Newberg to give me this opportunity to reach so many women at the same time and spread awareness regarding breast cancer. I guess I'll just start by screening my presentation. Sushma, if before we start the session, we are going to take the questions at the end, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So everyone can put in their question in the chat box. We will take the set questions at the end.
Great. So my presentation is going to be predominantly in English, but at any point of time, if any of the organizers or the host require me to use any other language, please feel free to do so. I'm a multilingualist and I can speak in most of the common languages in India. Share.
Link I think we should register from our links to the participant number.
Can you see my screen now?
Yes, ma'am, we can, but
but it's not full screen.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Are we full screen now? Sushma, are we full screen for you now?
It's okay, ma'am. As in, we are not able to see we are able to see the screen. It's not full screen, but we are able to see it clearly.
Okay, because I have put my settings on full screen, so that's why I wanted
okay.
to.
Okay.
Display settings for the Okay, so let's let's decide about. Let's start on the presentation. So whenever we speak about breast cancer and awareness regarding breast cancer, the most important thing that women need to understand is that it's not being aware about a disease, it's about being aware about your organ. And that's especially applicable in breast. If a woman is aware about what her normal breast is and how normal breast behaves, that's when she will be able to know what an abnormal breast is or what is an abnormality in the breast going to look like, and she will be able to detect her cancer at the earliest. So that's why it's necessary to be breast aware, and being breast aware is one of the first and foremost step needed to early detect any breast cancer and to best manage breast cancer. So what is being breast aware? Being breast aware is like being aware of any other part of your body or any other organ of your body. You need to know what is normal for you. every woman has a different breast. Every woman's breast behaves differently during the different cycles or the different phases of a menstrual, hormonal, and reproductive phase. So, what is normal for me may not be normal for someone else, and what is normal for me 10 days before my cycle may not be normal for me 10 days after my cycle. So, this is what you need to understand. You also need to understand how your own breast looks and feels at different times, and you need to know what to look in your breast. What are those changes that occur in the breast normally, and what are the changes that occur in the breast during disease or during cancer? If there are any changes, you should not panic. You should go and tell your doctor immediately if there are any changes. This is a sentence which you're going to hear from me many times during today's presentation. If there is any suspicion of any abnormalities, please don't panic. Go and see your doctor. When I sit in my outpatient clinic and see only breast cases, out of 100 women who come to me with symptoms suggestive of cancer, hardly 15 to 20 of them get diagnosed with cancer. The rest of them do not have cancer, and that's why please do not panic. The most important thing that we are going to discuss today is about screening. You have to go for breast screening if you are above the age of 40. What is breast screening? How is it done? All of it we are going to discuss in our further presentation. So what should one know, or what should you know about breast cancer? First and foremost, what do you need to know is, why should one worry about breast cancer? Why is it that we have an entire month dedicated in the year to make ourselves aware about breast cancer? Why is it necessary that each one of us should know what is breast cancer? The first and the foremost point, breast cancer incidence is on a rise, and it is uniformly on a rise. It's on a rise across the world. India also equally affected. We are seeing a phenomenal rise in the incidence of breast cancer cases across our country. Initially, this disease was supposed to be a disease of the urban women in India, but no longer. Now we are seeing changes in the incidence, or increase rather, in the incidence of breast cancer in urban as well as rural India. Obviously, there is more breast cancer seen in the urban India, but also in the rural India. More and more cases of breast cancer now are at a younger age group. More and more patients of breast cancer are being diagnosed of what we call as a premenopausal phase. This is before a woman even completes her menstrual cycle. More and more women, even today, are presenting at a late stage of presentation. And most of these women who present late to us could have probably reached the doctor earlier if they were aware that breast cancer is a reality and these are the signs and symptoms of breast cancer. Even as of today, 90% of my women come to me beyond stage 2B, when they're probably going to require a lot of systemic therapy. They're probably going to face a lot of increase in the incidence of recurrence of the disease and mortality due to the disease. Today in India, we are seeing that almost 26 women every 100,000 Indian women get affected with breast cancer, and that's a big number. And that number is consequently increasing. A few years ago, when I used to take this presentation, I used to say only 19 women get affected. 19 out of 100,000 women get affected, due to breast cancer in India. And that was as early as probably, or as near as 2016 or 17. And today I have come from 19 to 26. We are also seeing that the mortality or the death due to breast cancer is very high in India. Whereas 90% of women affected with breast cancer would get cure of the disease in countries like the United States and Australia and UK. In our country, barely 66% would survive the disease, and that also in the best of centers. Probably in the rural areas and in those areas where you do not have state-of-art technology and state-of-art institutions, we are seeing a dismal 50% survival. And when you see 26 women every 1 lakh women affected with breast cancer, at least 13 of those women are losing their lives to breast cancer today. Next, please. What is a trend? So the trend, like I told you, is on an increase. So what we are seeing is that by 2020, we are expecting that almost 18 lakh women will have breast cancer in India, 1800,000 women. And this is equivalent to 1 in every 8 women facing the risk of getting breast cancer throughout her lifetime, which is a WHO prediction. And WHO had warned us as early as 2008. We have to start acting early because the incidence of breast cancer is increasing in India. Next. So what are the risk factors? So whenever we talk about breast cancer, the 2 or 3 things that women need to understand is that what are the risk factors? And when I talk about the risk factors or what causes breast cancer, all of us need to understand that breast cancer is multifactorial. How do I explain multifactorial to you? Most of us are women, and I think I saw some men also in the names. So if you are, say, for example, preparing a dish in your kitchen, there are a lot of things which go to make that dish successful. The type of ingredients you use, the amount of ingredients you use, the heat you use, the type of cooking that you use. If you are baking a cake and you put it on a dosa pan, it's not going to come out well, right? So that's one of the factors out of many factors. Breast cancer also is multifactorial, which means that a lot of factors come into play to increase your risk of getting breast cancer. No single cause can be attributed to as to causing breast cancer. The most alarming thing about the risk factors, 38%, that is almost a third of the breast cancers that occur in the world today, happen because of lifestyle related diseases. And these are the cancers which are highly preventable. If we can control the lifestyle changes that affect the incidence of breast cancer, in our next generation to come, we'll probably be seeing 38% less incidence of breast cancer. And that is a very great reduction in the incidence of breast cancer. Next, please. So when we talk about multifactorial cancers, please remember that we see around some of the factors which are controllable. Women can reduce that factor by adopting certain measures. And some of these factors are uncontrollable. If they're there in your case, they're there. You can't change it. So why is it necessary to know whether you have controllable factors or uncontrollable factors? Is because if you have, say, an overall risk which is considered to be high risk for breast cancer, and if you reduce the intensity of some of the factors which are controllable, then your overall risk of breast cancer will go down. And that is the reason why every woman should understand what are the risk factors that cause breast cancer and which of these risk factors can you reduce on your own. So what are those risk factors that cannot be controlled? The most important is that you are a woman. A woman is at a higher risk of getting breast cancer. What does that mean? That means that men also can get breast cancer, and men also have a very high risk of getting breast cancer. Men do not have a very high, men do not have a very high risk of getting breast cancer. Women have a higher risk of getting breast cancer because of the hormonal changes that occur in their body and the different dynamics that go on in her breast, starting from her menarche, going on to her menopause, throughout her monthly cycles, during her pregnancy, during her breastfeeding, etc. So that is the reason why women are at a higher risk of getting breast cancer. It's equivalent to, if I give you an example and if I ask you, I'm going to give you 2 jute bags to use every day. One of them you carry with you every day and use it for whatever your reason you need to. And one bag you will nicely cover and keep it inside the cover and not use it. Which of these 2 bags is going to tear off earlier? Which would you say? The one which you use every day, right? The one which has been used repeatedly, which has been subjected to a lot of trauma, damage, misuse. So that is how a breast which has undergone a lot of irregularities, a lot of irregular stimulation due to whatever reasons, I'll come to those reasons later, is the breast which may be at a higher risk of getting breast cancer later on in life. And that explains some of the uncontrollable factors. Women who have a family history of breast cancer, which means a woman who has more than 2 or more than 2 women being affected by breast cancer, ovarian cancer, or a man or a male member of a family getting affected by breast cancer or prostate cancer. especially if these people have been younger than 45 years of age, especially if these people have had aggressive type of a cancer, which in our language or medical terms we call as a triple negative type of a breast cancer, especially if these people have succumbed to the breast cancer. This is what is called as a strong family history. And please don't feel shy when you tell your doctors about your family history. When I sit in my outpatients and women ask me or I ask them, do you have a family history of breast cancer? They'll immediately say, no, of course not. Nobody in my family has had breast cancer ever. There's no need to consider this as a stigma. Breast cancer is another disease. It's not a stigma. But if you are able to tell your doctor rightfully, that yes, I have these histories in my family, your doctor will be able to evaluate if you are at what is called as a genetic risk or you are at a risk of having a genetic mutation that predisposes you for breast cancer. And that is the reason why you need to understand what is the family history or the personal history. The other common factor is your age. As a woman grows older, her own personal risk of getting breast cancer increases. You would have read in so many forums, in newspapers, magazines, you're going to be flooded by articles in the entire October now. So there you will read that, 43 to 45 years of age or 43 to 58 years of age or say 45 to 55 years of age is the highest incidence of breast cancer in India. What does that mean? Does that mean that tomorrow is my 55th birthday, so I should throw a party that ab tak nahi hua, ab nahi hone wala hai? No, it's not like that. If I didn't get breast cancer till date, my personal risk of getting breast cancer is going to increase with age. If my risk was 20% at 40, it's definitely going to be more than 20% at 30, at 50. It's going to be more higher at 60. So every woman should understand that the risk of breast cancer does not reduce with age. It remains increasing, right? And that is the reason why every woman above the age of 40 should regularly undergo breast checkups. How? Let you. A lot of races or a lot of communities are known to have a higher incidence of breast cancer related to genetic factors, related to lifestyle related factors, etc. Like for example, in India, we know that the Parsi community is at a higher risk of getting breast cancer. We know that the Punjab, in Punjab, we see a high risk of getting breast cancer. There are some states like Kerala have a very low incidence of breast cancer. So these are important also to know. Other important factor like I told you was related to your hormonal cycles. What was the age at which you started getting your periods and what was the age at which you stopped your periods? Now, why is this important? Remember I told you the breast which undergoes a lot of hormonal changes repeatedly is at a higher risk of getting breast cancer. So if I started my periods at 9 years of age and I kept on getting my periods till 55 years of age, my breasts have undergone monthly changes for that longer time period. And that is why women who started their periods much earlier and who continued their periods much later are at a very high risk of breast cancer as compared to those women who did not do so. Those women who have reproductive history which suggests that they could not have had a full-term pregnancy are also at a high risk of getting breast cancer, because during pregnancy these hormonal changes which affect your breast do not occur, and your body gets a chance to not to stop those changes or to a great extent repair those changes. Our body has certain genes which are called as cell repair genes. These cell repair genes keep on changing those cancerous changes that occur here and there in your body, and that is the reason why most of us don't end up getting cancers. But unfortunately, if this cell repair gene is defective or has what is called as a mutation, then you are at a higher risk of getting breast cancer, because your body cannot rectify those cancerous changes which keep on happening as you grow older. And that is what constitutes your genetic factors. The mutations which are commonly seen causing breast cancer are the BRCA1 and the BRCA2 mutations. There are a lot of other mutations which a geneticist is the right person to guide you. But these mutations, if they are known to have happened, identified in your blood relatives, then there might be a higher probability that you are at a high risk of getting breast cancer. Radiation those women who get what are called as a mantle radiation, for some chest-related malignancy in childhood, they are considered to be at high risk of developing breast cancer later in life. This is a very specific cause, and it only affects those women who have been subjected to irradiation in the childhood. Right? Hormone replacement therapy. Now, be very particular. I have mentioned hormone replacement therapy as a factor that cannot be controlled. It's also going to come into your factor which can be controlled. So I'm going to explain it where it can be controlled. Okay, so let's go to the next risk factors group, which is called as a risk factors that can be controlled. All women are at risk. That you are a woman, you cannot change this fact. But what are those changes which you can, affect? One, your reproductive life, your decisions to plan a pregnancy, your decision to breastfeed your baby can have an impact on reducing your risk of breast cancer cumulatively. Please understand these are not the only factors which are going to reduce your risk, and do not presume that just because you've had pregnancies within the regular age which is advisable, because you breastfed all your children, you are completely protected from getting breast cancer. Like I said, this is one of the many factors, and it helps reduce your individual risk to a great extent. So those women who would not plan a pregnancy much earlier in life, or delay it to say after 32 years or 34 years of age, those women who are not able to plan their pregnancies or not able to breastfeed their babies do not get opportunity to reduce their risk individually. There are a group of factors which are called as lifestyle related factors, which are also the ones which can be controlled and which are very much in your own hands. And these are the factors which are very, very prevalent in today's urban women in India. So all of us need to be aware of these. One, your weight. Second, faulty diet. Third, addictions. Fourth, stress. And fifth, dependence on hormone replacement therapy. I'm going to tackle all of them one by one. Let me first tackle hormone replacement therapy because it is a very specific factor. Hormone replacement therapy is not your thyroid hormone medicines that you take throughout your life if you have hypothyroidism. It does not mean your oral contraceptive pills. Oral contraceptive pills, which used to be taken a few decades ago, were considered to be associated with the increase in breast cancer risk. No longer. Today, the oral contraceptive pills which are used do not have a meaningful impact on the risk of breast cancer. So that is why if you are using oral contraceptive pills off and on here in today's world, the new type of oral contraceptive pills, then that's not going to affect your risk of breast cancer. Hormone replacement therapy are specific hormonal substitution therapies which are given to those women who are having menopause and post-menopause, who have extremely high menopause related or extremely severe menopause related medical problems, like menopause associated severe osteoporosis, like menopause associated any other illness which may be prompting their gynecologist to advise them to take a hormone replacement therapy. Now, hormone replacement therapy should not be taken just to control the regular constitutional side effects of menopause, irritability, puffiness of face, or slight fluid and water overload. For these reasons, you don't need to take hormone replacement therapy. Whatever hormone replacement therapy is to be taken under the advice of a specialist gynecologist. And please remember, whenever you take hormone replacement therapy, stop it in between. Take a break. That is going to protect you from the risk of breast cancer. Now, when we come to the lifestyle related factors, obesity, especially obesity around your menopausal phase, is what is very detrimental. And that is what a faulty diet, lack of exercise is going to also contribute to. Your weight gain is going to cause extra hormone production from your fat deposits, which is going to be irregular. The regular cycle is very rhythmic. The body follows a rhythmic cycle, and when these hormones start getting produced from your fatty depots, that's when it is irregular, and that is when the rhythm is lost. That is when you get exposed to the risk of breast cancer. Next, please. So if I take a moment here, Shushma, are we all right with it? Do you have any suggestions, or are there any suggestions on the chat before I go to the next section?
No, we are fine.
You're good. Okay. So when we have talked about, now we understood what are the risk factors for breast cancer. Now we need to understand how can one prevent oneself from getting breast cancer, or how can one reduce one's own risk of getting breast cancer, and how can one do early diagnosis. Why are we talking about early diagnosis? Why are we just not preventing breast cancer? That's because it's absolutely not possible to prevent breast cancer as of today, because breast cancer is a disease which does not yet have a vaccine or a therapeutic measure or even surgical methodology by which you can completely eliminate the risk of getting breast cancer. Even women who undergo breast removing surgery cannot bring down their breast cancer to zero. There is a basic risk which they also their breast. The reason we do what is the next option in hands. And then the best option in our hands is to do breast cancer screening. Breast screening is like any other screening for any other disease. So what is screening? Next, please. And what do we do? How can we do it? What can we do to do screening, and what is the necessity for screening? If you focus on this table, which I have shown you, you will see that I have mentioned 5-year survival rates for breast cancer as per the stages. Let's look at the first line. It says that if somebody has stage 1 breast cancer, the 5-year survival rate is 98%. What does this mean? In very simple language, this means, if I simplify it for all of you, it means when I treat 100 women with breast cancer in stage 1 completely, I'm not talking about incomplete treatment, complete scientifically accurate treatment, 98% of these women, so 98 out of 100 such women are going to be alive, hale and hearty at the end of 5 years. Come down to the last line. The last line is stage 4. When I treat 100 women with stage 4 breast cancer completely with all possible treatment modalities, only 16% of them are going to be alive and hale and probably hale and hearty with me at the end of 5 years. Go a step higher. If you see stage 3, when I treat 100 women with stage 3 breast cancer, and at the end of 5 years, I see only 50% of them are still there, alive with me, following up with me. And what is stage 3 breast cancer? You'll be surprised to know stage 3 breast cancer is nothing but a cancer which is around 5 centimeter in size in your breast, an underarm lymph node or a tumor which is spread to the underarm lymph nodes, which is around 2 centimeters in size. Tell me, is it so difficult to diagnose a 5 centimeter tumor in your breast? Then why is it that women fail to diagnose this cancer? Why is it that women don't realize there is a 5 centimeter tumor sitting in her breast? How soon do you think you would be able to identify a pimple on your face? If somebody gets a pimple on her face, how soon do you think you can identify it? In what size that it reaches? Usually even a 2 millimeter or a 3 millimeter size, right? Am I correct? Why so? Because 1, it's visible. 2, you know it's a pimple. You look out for it, you see if there is anything like this, and 3, it pains. None of this happens in breast cancer. 1, most of us don't know about breast cancer, are not aware about its signs and symptoms. It doesn't pain you, and it's not visible most of the times. You have to look for it. You have to search for it. It's not easily visible, right? So that is the reason why you need to do what is called as screening. Screening means, next please, you don't have any disease, you have no complaints, yet you want to know, or I as a doctor want to check you and see if there is any abnormality in your breast, or is there a possibility of you getting abnormality over the next few years or so. So this is what is called as screening. And the main reason why breast cancer screening is absolutely essential for every woman is that by screening, you can detect cancer much earlier when it is not so harmful, when it does not have a high risk of recurrence, when it is not going to kill you, and when it's not necessary for me to remove your breast for that cancer, right? Next, please. Screening for breast cancer is given in 3 formats, or rather, if I correct myself, there are 4 types of screening for breast cancer. The first type is what you see on the screen, self-breast examination. The second type of screening is clinical breast examination. The third type of screening is what is called as a imaging or a mammography-based screening. Every woman who has well-developed breasts, that can be at the age of 16, that can be at the age of 20, that can be at the age of 12, depending upon when a girl started her menarche, when did her breast form, and when were they big enough to have, lesions which could be hidden inside them. That's the age when you start screening for your breast. On an average, we advise women to start screening clinic or by themselves by the age of 20. We advise that women should do self-breast examination so that they know their own breasts. It is recommended that initially, when you are still getting familiarized with your own breast, you do it every month. You examine both your breasts and you examine both your underarms. Every examination has to be done on either side. The way you can do self-breast examination is in 3 modalities. 1, you stand in front of the mirror, you undress completely, look at both your breasts, see if both the breasts are at the same level. If you can see the picture of the woman with her hands above her head in front of the mirror, that's the pose you should take. That is going to tell you if the breasts are at the same level. Is there any sign which is seen in the breast which is becoming more prominent when you do this maneuver? Is there any evident swelling or evident mass that you can see either in the breast or the underarms? When you go and lie down, the side of the breast that you're going to examine, that side hand should lie above your head like that. And you should keep a small pillow or a small towel folded under your shoulder so that your breasts come to the front and you can examine it clearly. Please palpate with the flat of your hands. The best way to examine your breast is with the flat of your hands. So I'm going to show you on my forearm. Okay, you take the flat of your hand and you feel your skin, feel the breast underneath, press it gently and see. If you see there is some abnormality, rotate your hand in a circular motion, a zigzag motion, or a Z motion. What is not to be done is to hold the breast inside your pinch. Can you see that? All of you, can you see that? That's a pinch, and you're holding your breast. Don't do that. Your breast is a skin organ. It lies under the skin. If you pinch the breast, the entire gland of the breast is going to come inside your hands, and then Shushma is going to give me a phone call. 50 women felt breast lumps today after self-breast examination. So don't do that. Don't pinch your breast ever. Don't hold it like that. Feel only with the flat of your hands and use the pulp of your fingers to feel. Start from your collarbone. You know, the extent of your breast is from your collarbones to just little away from the midline to your lower ribs to almost, the seam or the cilia that is there in your dress laterally on the side up till there. So start from the periphery and move your fingers centrally towards the nipple, palpating every area. Once you reach the nipple, the black portion that is around the nipple is called as the areola. Gently press that in 2-3 directions and see if there is any fluid coming out from the nipple. That completes your breast examination. Then don't forget to examine your underarms. Push your hand, the fingers gently inside your underarms and roll it up and down to see if you can feel some small nodules or lumps there. And then please don't forget to check the other side. You have to examine both the sides of the breast and both the sides of the underarms. Is that clear to all of you? Now, Many of you must be cooking at home, right? So when you make dough at home and you are kneading the dough, जब आप आटा बनाते हैं, so if you feel that there is there are some gutlis in the dough, what do? What do all of us do? We take some oil on your hands, then you do the kneading again, so you can feel those small nodules or small gutlis in the atta, and then you can break them. Similarly, if you find during this examination that there is something in the breast which is doubtful, but you're not able to put your finger on it, the best thing to do is when you're taking a shower and when there is soap and water on your body, feel the breast again. If there is a small tumor which you have missed or you could not have identified, you'll easily do that. Is that clear? Next, please. So what do we understand about signs and symptoms of breast cancer? Signs are the ones which are seen by a doctor or by someone else, and symptoms are one which you feel yourselves. Okay. So next, please. When we talk about signs and symptoms of breast cancer, I'm going to show you each one of them. Dimpling or puckering of the skin, which becomes more intense when you raise your hand above the breast. Next. Any lump or hard knot in your breast, which you can feel in the breast or the underarms. Now, I just described how to palpate your, breast to you. Can you, or can any one of you, just give me a minute. Can I see all the screens if there are any? So, when we talk about examining the breast, how do you know what you are examining is normal or what you're examining it is abnormal? So for that, what you need to do is, you need to take your own finger and you need to examine your lower lip. Can you feel your own lower lip? I can't see most of you, but I believe you are doing what I'm asking you to do. So use your index finger and feel the lower lip. The softness of the lower lip is what you would feel a normal breast to be like. Now take the same finger and feel the tip of your nose. Just press it gently and you will feel a springy feeling, like a spring. You're pressing something like a spring. Don't remove the finger, just release the pressure and the nose springs back, right? It just springs back. So that is the type of a feeling you get when you're feeling hormonal swellings in your breast. And you move your finger across your forehead. You feel the hard, irregular, bosselated surface of your forehead. That is the type of a feeling that you get when you're feeling a tumor. So that's what you're going to see when you do breast self-examination. That is what you're going to feel. Is it soft? Are there any springy areas? Is there any hard area? How do I know if this is normal, abnormal, etc.? Next, please. Then one of the most pathognomic signs of breast cancer is a sudden discharge that starts in your nipple. Many women habitually get breast discharge, yellow colored discharge, white colored discharge, green colored discharge, brown colored discharge. When it is coming from a lot of openings on both the sides of the breast, it's not worrisome. But if it is coming suddenly, it was never there and it started coming suddenly, then that's when you need to get worried about it, especially if it contains blood in it. It's very easy to see what it is. Take a tissue paper, put that drop of discharge on the tissue paper. If it is brown, dark brown in color, dark green in color, white, yellow, straw colored, no need to get panicked about it. But if it looks like blood and when you put it on the tissue paper, if it turns brown later on, that's probably blood stained, and that is when you need to immediately rush to your doctor. Next, please. Other than that, we have a very commonly seen finding which is called as a Paget's disease of the nipple, where your nipple keeps on getting a rash and it heals on its own initially. Later on, it starts becoming more severe and starts spreading to the areolar part of the nipple, and it will cause some oozing with some blood discharge. That also can be a sign of impending cancer. Okay, so if you have a rash which healed on its own or healed with treatment but keeps on coming back again and again and again, then it's a time to go to a specialist surgeon or a specialist radiologist, because you would probably need more intensive investigations. Now, please remember, I told you pain is not a sign of cancer. But nowadays, when we see younger and younger women getting breast cancer, these are the women with very dense breasts. These are the women who have more number of glands as compared to fat in their breast. And these women sometimes do come to us with a persistent history on one spot. This is the spot where it hurts me. This is the spot where I can feel a mass. This is the spot which keeps on troubling me again and again. Okay, so persistence of one spot of problem is something again which you should get checked. Next. Inward pulling of the nipple, an extremely pathognomic sign of breast cancer. Any cancer which is there sitting inside the breast is going to pull your nipple inside, because your nipple is where the ducts of the breast come out from. And that's why any tumor which is tightening those ducts inside is going to pull the nipple inside. So suddenly when your nipple starts getting inverted or retracted is when you should immediately go and get yourselves checked. This is one of the very pathognomic signs of breast cancer. Next, please. A swelling or a warmth or a reddening which occurs because of no reason. There is no mosquito bite, there is no allergy, there is no boil. It doesn't hurt you, it just feels warm and looks red. Can be one of the signs of underlying cancer. Next. So what does one do? How does one screen for breast cancer? Screening for breast cancer is very particular. Above the age of 40, a woman should undergo mammography as the first modality for screening. In India, we usually ask our women to also undergo ultrasonography because our breasts are dense. Now, this is something all of you need to understand. Your breast is full of glands and it is full of fat. You can get different type of pathologies in the breast. You can have a tumor, you can have a fat tumor, you can have a fibroadenoma, which is a benign tumor, which is non-cancerous. Most commonly, most of you who've had an ultrasound or a mammogram would remember, have sometimes something's written in your mammogram. It says that you have a cyst, C-Y-S-T. A cyst is a water-filled or a liquid-filled area of your breast, which is most of the times, of hormonal etiology. Now, how do I differentiate? If I show you a water-filled balloon and I show you say a smooth laddu, both painted red, will you be able to tell me which is a laddu and which is a water-filled balloon? No, you won't. Now, I hold these two under the light and ask you to look at this shadow and tell me, look at this shadow and tell me, is this a laddu or is this a water-filled balloon? You again won't be able to tell me. So that's what your mammography does for you. Mammography casts the shadow of the organ on the X-ray film, which your doctor is going to evaluate. If I cut these two, the laddu as well as the water balloon, into two and show you the cut surface, that is when you're going to be able to make out, oh yes, this is a solid laddu and this is a water-filled balloon. Okay, so ultrasonography of the breast does exactly that. It identifies for you what is a water-filled area and what is a solid area. If it is a solid area, is it a uniformly solid area? Does it have different areas? Does it look like cancer? Does it have any other signs of cancer, etc.? So that is why in India, don't be surprised if you go for a mammogram and the radiologists insist on doing an ultrasound to complement the mammogram. Every woman who is under the age of 40 does not need to get a mammogram unless she has been seen by a specialist surgeon and advised for a mammogram. Because under the age of 40, your breasts are very dense and mammography will not be of any help. Mammography will be done under the age of 40 for normal risk women and under the age of 35 for high risk women, only if a specialized breast cancer surgeon has seen you and identified you to be high risk for a cancer and has advised a mammogram. Otherwise, under the age of 40 or under the age of 35 for high risk women, ultrasonography is our investigation of choice. In those women who are at a higher risk of breast cancer due to identified family history or identified gene mutation, an MRI breast along with your mammogram is what is needed. Please understand this very clearly. Your mammogram tells you about certain findings in the breast. Your ultrasound tells you about certain other findings in the breast. And your MRI tells you about certain other than these two findings in the breast. So all three of them are complementary for each other. And that is why if someone has been advised to get an MRI breast also done along with a routine mammogram, please do it together. Otherwise, I see women telling me that हमको बोला था MRI करने को पर अभी मैमो हो गया था इसलिए हमने तब MRI नहीं कराया, अब हम MRI करा रहे हैं. That will reduce the efficiency of these three tests being used for you. Okay, so that is how we plan the screening. Above the age of 40, every woman should undergo a baseline mammogram, if possible, a full-field digital mammography. Identify what her breast looks like. Is there any high risk for breast cancer? Are there any areas which are suspicious? Get an ultrasound done and then see a specialist to evaluate your own risk of breast cancer. This is called as what is called as risk stratification. So when you go to a specialist, that specialist is probably going to then send you for the fourth type of screening, which is called as a genetic screening. So if you are found to be high risk for breast cancer in the family because of incidences in the family of certain cancers or a known incidence of a person with a gene mutation, and that is when your specialist is going to refer you to a geneticist for counseling and evaluation. Do you fall into the bracket where a genetic mutation is suspected? And if you do so, which mutation is suspected? What are the genes which should be tested? And then you will undergo the fourth type of a screening, which is called as a genetic screening. Now, this type of screening occurs only once in your lifetime. They will do your gene analysis. They will let you know, do you have a gene mutation? Do you not have a gene mutation? If you have a gene mutation, then according to your status of reproductive history, your familial history, the age at which cancer was seen in your family, they will then advise you what are the preventive measures. Okay, so these are all the screening modalities. Next, please. I'm going to wrap up in the next few minutes, and then we can have question and answer session. These are the benefits of regular screening. I do not know if you can see them carefully. Let's start from the lowest first. Women who regularly undergo mammography-based screening will never ever miss a cancer which is larger than 1.1 centimeter, because when you see a specialist after your first mammogram, he or she is going to assess your risk of developing a cancer. How fast will you develop a cancer? And accordingly tell you what is the time for your next mammogram. Do you come back after a year? Do you come back after 2 years? Do you come back after 3 years? Is what will be told to you. And that is the risk which your doctor will assess for you to get a cancer of 1 centimeter within how much time. And that is how they are going to advise you. Those women who will once in a while get a mammogram done, on an average will get a cancer detected around 1.5 to 2 centimeters. Those women who regularly practice breast cancer do not miss tumors larger than 2 centimeters. It's very simple. You palpate your own breast, you get familiarized with your breast, you know what is happening there. So even if there is a small tumor, you will immediately rush to your doctor. I have some of my patients who come to me for follow-up because there has been some family history. They are so alert. Sometimes they catch tumors at 4 millimeters. They don't feel the tumor, they just feel an irregularity, and they know because they've been feeling their breast. They come to me and they tell me, no, it's there. Something is wrong over here. And then we search it and we find it. Okay. Then those women on an average in India who never do self-breast examination, who never do screening mammograms, would very commonly come to us with a tumor the size of 3.6 centimeters. That's the average figure. Next, please. So what do you do if you find a change? Again, don't panic. Tell your doctor without any delay. If you have any change that is suggestive of cancer, it's not necessary that you get diagnosed to be a cancer, but the earlier you report to the doctor, the earlier you get diagnosed, and God forbid if it is a cancer, earlier diagnosis, you are going to get treated much better and with better modalities of care. You will probably not be needing more adjuvant treatments than what is seen in a larger stage or a higher stage of cancer. So that is the reason why you need to understand that if you find a change, then you should be going to see your doctor immediately. Which doctor? This is a question which is asked to me often. Where do I go? We don't have a breast specialist in our setup. Go to any general surgeon. General surgeons can examine your breast for you. They can identify what is happening. If you don't have, you can go to the radiologist who is doing your mammography, sonography. Even the radiologist will be able to assess you by a basic test whether you have something which is required to be evaluated further. Okay. What next? So please tell your doctor without any delays. It takes 4 to 5 weeks for the most aggressive form of cancer to advance to the next stage. Don't wait for cancers to advance. Please go earliest to your doctors. What are the advances in breast cancer management? Phenomenal. Breast cancer today is one of the best treated cancers in the world. Breast cancer is one of the custom treated cancers in the world today. In breast cancer management, no two patients are treated similarly. It's a customized care. Even our staging now is what is called as prognostic staging. We don't just identify how much cancer you have, we identify what sort of cancer you have, what medicines are you going to be, being treated to well, what are the medicines that are going to work best for you, what are the type of surgeries available for you. That is called as prognostic staging. We now do breast saving surgeries in most of our patients. In those patients where we can't save the breast, we reconstruct the breast immediately. Young patients of mine, they regularly come, when they have not even had their first pregnancy, some of them not even married, they come to us, they get fertility preservation treatment, they get breast saving surgeries or breast reconstructing surgeries. They've gone ahead and got married, had normal pregnancies, and are living as normal a life as you and me. So breast cancer, one of the best treated cancers when treated early. We now have what are called as targeted therapies. We have targeted endocrine therapies and we have targeted immunotherapies, where depending upon certain oncogenes identified on the surface of your tumor, we give you specific treatment which is 100% efficacious. And we have very advanced radiation technologies which help me to preserve the breast, at the same time not allow the cancer to recur. And now we have we know how can we manage our lifestyle, reduce the risk of getting breast cancer in somebody. Next, please. So this is what, in short, is going to be a breast cancer treatment prescription, plus or minus all of them, plus or minus some of them, depending upon how your treatment is customized. Please understand, any cancer treatment is multidisciplinary treatment. Any doctor, a lot of patients ask me, what is the best place to treat cancer? The best place to treat cancer is where all the specialists are going to come together and plan your protocol before the first step of treatment happens, so that you get the best possible options of treatment and there is no hit and miss type of a treatment. So multidisciplinary treatment is your best way, and assessing your genetic risk before you start your treatment is extremely important. Next, please. Breast saving surgery is every woman's right and you should ask for it. Don't feel shy. Don't feel that I will be judged for asking to save my breast. No, it's your right and you should ask for it. Very quickly, some myths and truths which are very prevalent, and I call it the WhatsApp ki pathshala. So these, always circulate on WhatsApp, and then once they circulate, I keep on getting these queries from a lot of people. Breast cancer is a death sentence. Not at all. If detected early and treated well, breast cancer is the best treated. Next. Breast cancer is hereditary. Not in all. Almost 90% of women have no breast cancer history in the family, have no identified mutation. Some with a strong family history don't have identified mutation. And sometimes we find women with very aggressive cancers going for de novo genetic testing and they have a mutation possible. So it's not always hereditary, but yes, up to 10% of breast cancer cases could have a genetic mutation identified in them. Next, please. If I have a bigger breast, I have a higher chance of getting breast cancer? Absolutely not. Women who have denser breasts, which means those women who on mammogram have been identified to have more glands than fat in their breast, will be at a higher risk of getting breast cancer. but not related to the size of your breast. Next, please. Breast cancer is contagious. No, you cannot be infected with breast cancer through physical contact, which includes touching, drinking, sharing food, having intercourse, or hugging, or being there with the breast cancer patient. Breast cancer is not contagious. Next. Deodorants, antiperspirants, and bras can cause breast cancer. No. Deodorants and antiperspirants of standardized quality, which has been certified by the regulatory authorities, will not have any association, have not yet been proven to have any association with increased risk of breast cancer. Bras are clothing materials. They do not affect your risk of breast cancer. Let me make this very clear. This is a most prevalent misconception in our country. Red bras, black bras, white bras, lycra bras, one bra, two bra, no bra does not affect your risk of breast cancer. It has nothing to do with your breast cancer risk. Next, please. All breast lumps are cancerous, not at all. When I see cancerous-like symptoms also, hardly 15 to 20% of them would be diagnosed with breast cancer. Most of them are what are called as benign, and if you read your mammogram ultrasound reports, what are called as fibroadenomas or cysts. But please, this diagnosis should be done by a specialist and not yourself. Let a specialist see you. Let him or her identify for you whether this is benign or cancerous. Next, please. An injury to the breast can cause cancer. No, an injury to the breast does not cause cancer. But yes, breast tumors are very friable. Sometimes when you don't know you have a tumor inside and you incidentally take a hit on your breast, that tumor can rupture, can bleed, and that's how usually some of the tumors get diagnosed, especially in the elderly women. Next, please. Now, all of us know that mammography is used as a screening tool for breast cancer. Some of us carry the perception that today I did a mammogram, it's normal, so I don't have breast cancer, now I'm not going to get breast cancer. Please understand, mammogram is just a tool for diagnosis. If it has been told that today you don't have breast cancer seen on the mammogram, then ask the doctor. The status remains the same for how long? After how many more years or months should I re-investigate myself? Okay. Just having a normal mammogram today does not mean you're cleared for life and you are not going to face the risk of breast cancer. Next, please. Breast cancer lumps are painful and grow fast. No, not necessary. Most of them are painless and most of them may not grow as fast as what a hormonal swelling will grow. A hormonal swelling will come overnight. Today it was not there, tomorrow it is there, right? But not a breast cancer. Next, please. Mastectomy is the only way to get rid of breast cancer? Not at all. Most of our women now can have a breast saving surgery, and unfortunately if they need a breast removing surgery, like in those women who have a genetic mutation and who opt to remove their breast completely, where we can reconstruct the breast and their form can be preserved, we can now we routinely preserve nipple and areola also. Okay, next. So this is our last segment, and this is the most important segment for us. How does one reduce the risk? You cannot prevent breast cancer. What can you do? You can reduce your risk of getting breast cancer. How does one person reduce the risk of one's getting breast cancer? By lifestyle management. The 4 pillars of lifestyle management: control your weight, exercise regularly, eat well, and avoid stress and addictions. Next, please. What is Eat Smart? The World Health Organization says that women and men should have at least 7 to 8 servings of fresh fruits and vegetables. What does that mean? Fresh fruits and vegetables, 7 and 8 servings is very less. If you think of it, 1 glass of Nimbu Pani, 1 glass of coconut water, 1 medium-sized apple, 1 small banana, 1 medium-sized chiku, 2 slices of papaya, 2 slices of watermelon, 1 medium-sized cucumber. These are all 1 servings of fruit and vegetables. Cooked vegetables, 1 whole vati of vegetable is 2 servings of vegetables. So it's not very difficult, is it, for us to have fresh fruits and vegetables 7 to 8 times a day? We need to have regular small meals. We need to focus on multicolored, naturally colored fruit. Different types of colors in your food which are naturally occur, signify different micronutrients that you are going to access. Green leafy vegetables are going to give you iron. Yellow, red fruits and vegetables are going to give you carotene. So these are the different types of colors which code your nutrients for you, and that's why you should try to have all these colors in your foods, food particles. Also remember, excuse me, most of us have this habit of not eating fruits and vegetables. Predominantly, most of us women have this, even if it's educated woman, she's a highly efficient work manager at home, all of that boils down to love for her family and her children, isn't it? Most of us will go and take fresh fruits and vegetables at home and cut those fruits and give them to whom? सबसे पहले आप किसको दोगे? You'll give them to your kids. If anything else is left, whom will you give? You'll give them to Pati Parmeshwar. That is also thoda aur bacha. फिर किसको देंगे? To probably your parents, your in-laws. फिर भी बचा. फिर will you eat them? No. What will you do with them? Keep them in the fridge. When will women eat those fruits? They will eat them when that fruit is going to get spoiled. Don't do that. You are more important to your family than that fruit that you are so lovingly serving them. You also have to eat fresh fruits and vegetables. You also have to take care of yourselves. You also have to take care that you eat adequate nutrients. If you are strong, they are strong. That's what you have to take care of. Next, please. Obesity. I'm very happy that Sushma has asked me to take a online webinar. If I was sitting right in front of you, you wouldn't have needed this photograph. But anyways, that's not what you have to look like, especially if you're around your menopause. Your weight has to be in control. You have to try to exercise regularly and control your diet so that obesity does not cause havoc with your hormones around your menopause. Next, please. Get physical, get active. Every child, 12 to 17 years of age, young girl needs at least 1 hour of exercise. Have you noticed teenage girls, when they go into their teenagers, they start putting on weight. Why? Because at that time they need to exercise more, but their exercise goes down due to their schooling, due to their academics or whatever, their change in patterns of lifestyle. So between 12 and 17, 1 hour of exercise compulsory every day. Above 18 years of age, at least 150 minutes of exercise every day for 5 days. That is half an hour to 45 minutes of exercise every day, at least for 5 days a week is mandated. Next, please. Exercise and stress relief. Please remember, when you exercise, whatever stress you have gets relieved because exercise boosts this feel-good endorphins. It distracts you from the worries. It kind of resets your brain. So that is why exercise is also going to help you control your stress and hence control all those stress hormones which are going to act on your body. Next, please. Stress management. Please understand, today's world, multitasking, we are all facing, right now in the last 6 months, you are facing a COVID pandemic. How stressful has it been? It has been so stressful. It is still stressful. Can we avoid it? Can I avoid going to work? Can I avoid exposing myself to COVID? No, I can't. Can you do it? Probably some of you can't. But then what can you do? If you can't avoid stress, you can at least avoid the effects of stress on your body. How do you know that stress is now harming your body physically or emotionally? When you have excessive crying spells, when you are sleepless at night, in spite of having worked the whole day, in spite of having had a tired day, if you're not able to sleep, when food doesn't appeal to you, when you don't want to sit in a group and have a good lively chat, when you want to be left alone, these are the signs that when you don't want to exercise, when you don't feel like getting up in the morning and jumping off your bed, these are the signs that stress may be affecting you physically and emotionally. Take help, ask for help. Nothing is wrong in asking for help. Support is always the strength that one should derive from people around you. And if it is not available immediately from people around you, there are professionals who can help you. So you have to do that for yourselves. Next, please. So what is it that one can do about breast cancer? Eat smart, get active, reduce the stress in your life and reduce the stress-related effects on your body. limit the addictions, younger generation. Addictions like alcoholism and tobacco are not associated directly with causing breast cancer, but are known to have an aggravating factor or aggravating effect on pre-existing risk. Okay, so you have to restrict your addictions also. Okay, next. And most importantly, get involved. Breast cancer is going to affect our country in a very big way and a bad way in the decades to come. If each one of us, every woman and men, start working towards creating awareness for breast cancer, start educating each other about breast cancer and how it can be treated well, how to survive breast cancer and how to stay strong and come back in the society in a full form, each one of us need to get involved. Each one of us need to do that extra for the other person in our community. Thank you very much. Open for all questions.
Thank you, Dr. Zope. It was just too amazing and you made it so simple. We had so many questions and now I know exactly what also to look for. And yes, there are a few questions. One question is
it just, this is probably towards the last. Just scroll it on top.
ये दिख रहा है? अच्छा साइड में ही हुआ सर?
Okay. Last question, start from the first question.
So should I take the question, Shushma? I can see
Yes,
some in the
sure.
chat.
Are you supposed to ask the question, Asma?
Should I? So, ma'am, the first one is a lot of oncologists are suggesting germline BRCA and somatic BRCA testing. What is the significance of doing these tests?
Can you come again? Shushma, I didn't hear you.
A lot of oncologists
Yeah.
are suggesting germline BRCA and somatic BRCA testing. What is the significance of doing these tests?
So like I just mentioned to you, those women who are suspected to have a gene mutation which is causing the breast cancer or which may cause breast cancer in them are suggested to undergo a genetic mutation study, which is the two ways of diagnosing it is the germline BRCA and the somatic BRCA testing. And yes, if the oncologist finds that you suffer from a particular type of a breast cancer, like I mentioned, triple negative breast cancer under the age of 65, or you have a positive family history, like I had just detailed to you, is when the oncologist might suggest you to undergo these tests. And now, yes, more and more oncologists are suggesting them because we are having certain molecules which can be preferentially used if you are identified to have certain mutations.
Can stage 1 women skip chemotherapy?
So yes, Miss Janet, most women who are in stage 1 would not require chemotherapy. Only the most aggressive types of cancers, which includes the triple or the quadruple negative breast cancer and the hormone receptor negative, but HER2 new positive breast cancers may probably require chemotherapy in stage 1. Otherwise, most women would not require chemotherapy in stage 1.
Next question is, how often is mammography suggested with family history?
With family history also, mammography is suggested, say, the age at which you should start getting mammography done depends upon the age at which the first index case in your family was identified. So if somebody has a family history where one of the women got breast cancer at the age of 35, then the other blood-related women in that family should start investigating their breasts 5 years before that age. So at 35, then they should start at 30. But at 30 years of age, mammography is not the right modality for investigation. So again, even if you have family history of breast cancer, please remember mammography may not be the right choice of investigation for you. What is needed is for you to see a high-risk clinic or a specialist a doctor who specializes in assessing your risk for breast cancer, and then let them do the investigations necessary. So depending upon what is the best effective treatment modality, they will advise you either a mammogram or an ultrasound or an MRI. Again, after they do the basic screening at that age, they will then ask you to come after certain stipulated time. It is never advised before 18 months, repeating investigations before 18 months, even if there is a positivity, because it's not going to yield. But clinical breast examination may be advised to be done every 6 monthly if a mutation is identified. And if your investigation reveals some precancerous type of illness, then they may want you to undergo a test which is required to be done maybe 6 months. But there is no set protocol where you should walk into a clinic or a lab and say that I have family history, please do my mammogram. No, please get yourself risk assessed and investigated, and then go for a investigation.
As you said, just 10% of the cases are hereditary. Not all breast cancers are hereditary.
Yes, absolutely.
Next question is, are all breast cancer patients given Herceptin?
All breast cancer patients are not given Herceptin. Herceptin is a specific targeted immunotherapy which is given only to those women who have a HER2/neu positivity identified on their tumors. HER2/neu is an oncogene which expresses, it's a protein which is identified on the surface of your breast cancer cells. If that is identified, that is only when women are advised to take trastuzumab or Herceptin, which is its commercial name.
Next question is, how will you decide which stage 1 or early stage 2 breast cancer patients require chemotherapy and those who can skip it?
Just now I had mentioned something about prognostication. So prognostication means we predict how your cancer is going to behave, whether it is going to recur, whether it is going to respond to treatment, whether it is going to respond equally well to the treatment given. That is called as prognostication. And prognostication is done by 1 year history, second, the nature of your tumor, third, the stage of the tumor, and fourth, what is called as the immunohistochemistry, the ER/PR, HER2/neu, Ki67. And the fifth, we now have certain genome analysis tests like the Oncotype DX, the MammaPrint, the Canasis, etc., which are used in a specific subset of patients, not all. Please understand, these are not applicable to all. These are only applicable in certain premenopausal, perimenopausal, postmenopausal women who have a hormone receptor strongly positive cancer, which has not spread anywhere else and is less than 2 centimeters in size. These are the women in whom we can do these tests to evaluate if chemotherapy is going to have any additional benefit or not.
Next question is, I heard obese women are more susceptible as fat is deposited for
Fat deposits for estrogen.
True or false?
So it's not as easy as it is said, but yes, obese women are at a higher risk of getting breast cancer because not just their own hormones which are produced from their ovaries, but also extraneous hormone production in their body in the different fat depots in their body. So fat is not, it does not store estrogen. Okay. The metabolism that goes on in producing hormones that is affected because of obesity. So it's not as easy as fat depots or estrogen depots in your body, but yes, the eventual effect is that extra or excessive fat in your body does cause a lot of estrogen irregularities, which can affect your breast cancer risk.
Can stoppage of tamoxifen after 5 years lead to relapse?
Tamoxifen is a premenopausal, is a hormone treatment which is advised for premenopausal breast cancer women. Now, depending upon the age at which tamoxifen was started, it is known that giving tamoxifen for an extended period, if you have not turned menopausal, or to change tamoxifen into another molecule like an AI, if you turn menopausal, does have a very strong effect on protecting you from getting another cancer or a cancer recurrence. It also helps you in reducing the risk of getting breast cancer on the opposite side. So lately, we don't stop tamoxifen at 5 years, but we do continue it beyond that and change it to another molecule if the woman has turned menopausal on a hormonal analysis.
Regular pricking pain in breast, will it lead to breast cancer?
Pain does not lead to breast cancer. Pain is a sign of something abnormal in the breast. Now, if you have a pricking vague and which changes its site and location and which is associated with your, say, cycles before your cycles come, then usually it is not worrisome. But never presume that, because I read this, because I heard this. You have to get yourselves investigated. If your basic investigations rule that the parenchyma underlying the site where you felt pain is normal, then you can relax and not worry.
Suggested diet, I think we've already covered it, but if you could just briefly tell us.
Suggested diet for reducing one's risk of breast cancer: one, avoid fatty food. Avoid food which has got, the fats which are unhealthy, like your vegetable oil, like dalda, like saturated fats. Eat healthy fats, eat high protein, controlled carbohydrate diet, eat lots of fresh fruits and vegetables, and avoid processed ready to eat food as much as possible.
I personally had one question: is many women are undergoing IVFs now. So does that also increase the risk of breast cancer?
As of now, we do not have, strong suggested evidence that IVF itself will cause breast cancer. But please understand, the circumstances which lead to IVF are already identified as those increasing your risk of breast cancer. Inability to have a full-term pregnancy before the age of 32 to 34, not having breastfed your child, having had hormonal irregularities, having had to take hormonal supplementations due to whatever reasons, including IVF, are some of the factors which are already associated with a higher risk of breast cancer. So yes, those women who have a history of IVF can be considered to be risk at breast cancer, but not per se only because of the IVF itself. It's because of their entire history. And any woman who is undergoing IVF at especially an older age or an elderly age should investigate her breasts before starting the IVF treatment.
Dr. Zope, we had one more question. Does residual cancer risk increase when breast conservation surgery is opted for?
So this is a question which a surgeon doesn't like, but a surgeon will answer. Breast conservation does not increase your risk of local recurrence if the selection of breast conservation versus mastectomy was done judiciously. Please understand this very clearly. All breast cancers cannot be treated with breast conservation for the simple reason that sometimes you have more than one area in the breast or multiple areas in the breast which are affected by cancer or cancer-like or precancerous changes. So if I only treat localized disease, the possibility of cancer occurring in the rest of the breast is extremely high. And this is where we tell you that, look, in your case, I cannot offer you breast conservative treatment. Now, all women need to understand it is not always necessary to save the breast. It can be enough to save the breast form. Do you understand what I'm saying? Your breast looks just the same as it does before the surgery. The skin, the nipple, and the areola is just as normal as it was before. But the entire gland from inside has been removed and replaced with healthy, your own autologous flap or with a inert implant. So that is the way to treat when you cannot. But yes, all women are not advised breast conservative surgery. If done judiciously and if patient is selected judiciously and investigated adequately before doing the breast conservation, you would usually not see higher incidence of local recurrence. So do we have any other questions, Sushma? I can
Yes.
see one.
Do you require to take chemotherapy and radiation after mastectomy, and how long?
So all patients who have undergone mastectomy do not have to take chemotherapy or radiation. Please understand, for breast cancer, the indications for surgery, radiation, chemotherapy, hormonal therapy, and immunotherapy, these are the 5 therapies which are used in breast cancer, different. Surgery is mandatory in all patients of breast cancer, other than those patients which are in the stage 4 and who have metastatic disease, where we do not offer surgery primarily, because offering surgery is not going to change their prognosis. Stage 1, 2, and 3 surgery is mandatory, whichever you do, breast saving or breast tumor. Chemotherapy is given when we suspect that the cancer has the capacity to spread to the other parts of the body. So that is usually given when you have 1, aggressive disease, or 2, the tumor is very large, or 3, the tumor has spread to the underarm lymph nodes, and of course in stage 4. Radiation is given when we believe that the tumor has spread from the breast to the underarm lymph nodes or to the internal mammary lymph nodes, or the tumor is bigger than size 5 centimeters. So if a woman undergoes mastectomy for a tumor which is less than 2 centimeters, which is ERPR HER2 new, ERPR positive, HER2 negative, lymph nodes are not positive, it has not spread anywhere else, she will neither require chemotherapy nor require radiation therapy. But if she underwent a MRM for a tumor which was 6 centimeters in size, then she's going to require chemotherapy as well as radiation.
Dr. Zope, can we have your email ID so that if they have any other questions, they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, sure. I'll just put in my email ID and whoever needs to can contact me.
Can you just, I'll just write it in.
So I also see one question which says that
One breast.
If one breast is removed, can cancer reoccur?
can cancer reoccur? Yes. Theoretically, every cancer has the possibility to recur. Even a stage 1 cancer can recur, and all cancers have the theoretical possibility to recur. However, different cancers have a different predicted risk of recurrence depending upon how early it was diagnosed and whether it is an aggressive or a non-aggressive cancer.
Okay. Dr. Zope, in case, can you just, if you want to say something to the women, one last summary kind of a thing, what?
Okay. So before I take the summary, just I think there is one question which we have not answered, and she has put it up much earlier. So I just address that.
This one. Is it?
Himani Dave, Miss Himani Dave.
If one breast is removed, can it occur again?
Yeah. What if breast is removed 10 years back, underwent 2 years hormonal injections, had swollen, also osteoarthritis? What do I do? Okay, so Ms. Dave, if this is the situation, then you need to see a good medical oncologist and get evaluated for the status of your tumor as of now. Once you're ascertain that there is no recurrence of the tumor anywhere in the body, including the arm and the underarm, then you would probably need good management for the osteoarthritis with or without the help of injectables, and a lymphedema management with a lymphedema therapist. And then when we come to what would I like to say to women, I would like to say to women that please remember that you are very precious. I am proud to be a woman, and I am proud of every other woman that I work with, every other woman who is in my life, my mother, my sister-in-law. Every woman who comes in contact with me has some or the other to give the world and to the society. And that is why it is your responsibility to take care of yourselves, to stay healthy. Breast cancer is extremely well-treated breast cancer, and the only thing required is for you to be aware of it, for you to check yourselves regularly. Not only is it necessary for you to check yourselves, please extend this information to women in your life, to every woman that you can affect. Inform them that this is how they can keep themselves safe. So stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zope, for such an informative session. We are flooded with messages saying great talk, very clear, excellent session.
Thank you, Shushma. Thank you, Krishna. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you so much,
coming.
ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.